You are being granted your Huntsman licenses.
Winter. The last three episodes were so okay that I almost completely forgot the fact that RWBY has this odd capability to raise so many problems with a single line. But hey, Team RWBY are finally Huntsmen. Now all those critics who've been complaining that they are doing all these amazing things despite the fact that they are essentially first year dropouts can stop complaining. Except, if you're a critic of RWBY, you're not exactly the kind of person to take what you've been told and run with it. Case in point, not for 1 second did I buy this.
This is strangely wholesome. Sounds like Penny to me.
But Penny's death aside, let's move on to them being huntsmen. So we all know why they are being made huntsmen, right? You only need to listen seriously to one RWBY critic to understand the problems of them being huntsmen in training who didn't even graduate from their first year, and yet all their accomplishments and the fact that many of the huntsmen we've seen before them just didn't seem like they'd actually be able to take on the main characters. I maintain that Ruby's biggest mistake was starting off in a school, especially because they didn't have any intention to show the education. Compared to My Hero Academia, when Deku and the others finally become pro heroes, you know it's going to hit with a lot of force because we've been watching this show and following all their lessons and how they become stronger. But from the way the creators talk about RWBY, I don't think that they ever once intended to seriously pay attention to what the education of a huntsman really is. So if Beacon had just been like a guild and the characters were just guild mates who had to work together and had already finished huntsman school, then we wouldn't have this problem. And it wouldn't be so surprising when we meet huntsmen that make the characters as that just started actually seriously going to a huntsman school who look like chumps. Wait, I'm sorry, that last sentence got away from me. Anyway, where was I? Oh yes, right. Now, let's move on. But I'm done talking about why RWBY has done this. Let's talk about the problems with doing this. Because the way RWBY did this, like many of the things RWBY does, raises some more than well, it raises a lot of questions for that really make me think they only did this so people would stop complaining, because otherwise I see no reason why they couldn't have put more thought into it. Because now we have to ask, did Atlas as a country issue them the huntsman licenses? Does that mean that it's possible that the licenses wouldn't be honored in other countries? If they go back to Vale, will it be necessary for Team Ruby and Juniper to to go back to join Beacon again before they can get their licenses in Vale? If the huntsman licenses are supposed to be universal, then it would only make sense that there's some sort of international huntsman body that's supposed to assign all these licenses. And that body must have standards, right? So you'd expect that they have to write a test to prove to the international body that should have nothing to do with the individual huntsman schools, that they are qualified. So did Atlas just forge some qualification documents and send it to the international body? This is the equivalent of say China deciding that some people from the US who the last time they were recorded doing anything related to education, they dropped out of a first year science course, and China deciding to give them university diplomas. Would it be will anyone actually take that seriously? You only need to look at their records to go, no, 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 no. And that's not even going over the fact that not for 1 second do I believe that any of these people are actually that much better than they were at the end of Volume 3. Do I really need to go over how unqualified they are? Look at Blake. She has not improved in the slightest since the fall of Beacon. And she wasn't even the best fighter among her classmates. Yeah, everyone else has improved a bit. Wise has a new power that seems to be useless in combat, but whatever. Ruby has tons more experience than everyone else, and Yang focuses better in combat. It's not them; those aren't much improvements, but they are leagues ahead of anything Blake has. So it's like, so I can't believe that they are huntsmen and physically, because they don't seem to have improved that much. Compare that to most other anime where you can clearly see people improve. Let's go back to My Hero Academia. You know that the end of that season 1 Deku could take on beginning of season 1 Deku. Hell, you can tell. Hell, as each season passes, you can clearly see the characters get that much stronger from their training and from their experiences. But you know, if they were in RWBY by season 2, they clearly would have become heroes with how much more powerful they are. Plus, now we have to ask all the because Team Coffee was designed to show where Team RWBY had to reach to become second year students. But Team RWBY are now Huntsmen, but they clearly haven't reached the skill ceiling set by Team Coffee. So the question is, should Team Coffee really be busy having their own book and their own adventures in Vacuo, or are they now qualified that if they go to Atlas right now, Ironwood will give them Huntsman licenses? Like I said in my commentary on episode 4, which may or may not have come out before this video, because they are now huntsmen, man, it raises so many questions about skill ceilings. But I do know why Ironwood did it. Ironwood did it for purely political reasons that I bet would fly over the characters' heads. Now that Team RWBY are essentially going to be the front, the faces, the young faces of the people who have been fighting CLM, it wouldn't essentially exactly be good for you to go, oh yeah, and they are huntsmen in training. So, does anyone actually take the fact that Team RWBY are now huntsmen to be serious? To quote one of the characters,
It almost feels trivial now.
all this means is that now they can go on side quests while we wait for the actual plot to get into gear. Note that as I'm making this video, I haven't seen anything past the episode where they become huntsmen. But, you know. Anyway, let's see. I really can't see where the season is going, and I don't have high hopes, but my hopes, I still have some hopes.